Rassie Rasmus and the Springboks have just announced a reduced Springbok squad that'll take on the Barbarians, Italy, and Georgia. They've taken it down from 55 players to 45 players. There's one new inclusion and a whole bunch of missing players. Obviously, I knew there was going to be surprises, but some of these calls are very, very surprising. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. As you know, we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and this channel is all about the Springboks and Springbok rugby and rugby within South Africa. So if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and as always, drop your opinions down in the comments. So there's been one massive call up. As you can see, I've just woken up. The squad has just dropped, and I knew I had to get this information out to you guys because I don't even think it's on Instagram or anything yet. Boan Venter has been called up to the Springbok squad. Now, after previously from this morning, I'd never heard of Venter in my life. He's a former Cheetahs prop who now plays for Edinburgh, and he earns his first Springbok call-up. He replaces injured props Steenekamp and Mchunu, and he's the only new addition to a squad following the first training week. Now, he will be joining the squad on the 29th of June, which means he'll be joining one day after the Barbarians test, which means we're not going to see Boan Venter against the Barbarians, but probably only against Italy and Georgia. A very, very interesting call-up from Rassie Rasmus, something that I didn't expect. I didn't expect when the squad gets smaller that we're going to see a new name pop up. So Boan Venter, let me know if you guys know much about him in the comments. We've obviously seen him play rugby for Edinburgh in the URC, but I never knew that he was even a thought for a Springbok player or a Springbok call-up. It is a massive loss losing Mchunu and Gerrit Steenekamp. So we're going to have to see if he can fill those shoes. Our prop depth has got slightly less now. We still have the likes of Vincent Koch, Thomas du Toit, Ox, and the likes. So it's going to be interesting, but that is the first shock to the system. Now, if we go through the injured players and also the released players. The injured players, Lukhanyo Pieter-Steph du Toit, Cameron Hanekom, Juarno Augustus, and then Steenekamp and Mchunu. So some massive names there, namely Pieter-Steph du Toit. It's a bit unfortunate for Cameron Hanekom and Juarno Augustus because a lot of people have been wanting to see them in the Springbok lineup. Cameron Hanekom got injured in the semi-final last week, and then we've been wanting to see Juarno Augustus in a Springbok top. It has now made that Springbok 8 position slightly more predictable if it's going to be Jasper Visser, Kwagga Smith, or Evan Roos. But two massive contenders for that 8 jersey are unfortunately injured. We've also got the likes of Ulrich Loh injured. So there's a lot of depth in that number 8 jersey, and I'm glad we have it now because of those injuries. Lukhanyo let's be honest, he didn't have a great game against the Bulls in that semi-final for the Sharks. He still is a world-class player, but I'm wondering if this might be a blessing in disguise for someone like an Ethan Hooker coming in and can potentially get some game time in that 13 jersey. Then, 5 players that have also been released, and this is very, very interesting. Jaden Hendrickse, Jordan Hendrickse, Kieran Horn, Renzo du Plessis, and Ntokozo Makaza. Now, Jaden and Jordan Hendrickse are massive exclusions because this is Rassie kind of saying maybe they're not in the plans for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. They can obviously still play themselves into the Springbok side. But I mean, Jaden and Jordan were with the Springboks the entire year last year. They've been playing some decent rugby for the Sharks. But that also just says that Rassie sees our fly-offs as Handré Pollard, Manie Lebok, and Sasha sort of moving forward. And that maybe with the inclusion of Faf de Klerk into the squad, we have too many scrum-offs. So I think now we have Faf, Mornay, Kobus Visser, and Grant Williams. Not Kobus Visser, Kobus Reinach and Grant Williams. And then Kieran Horn and Renzo du Plessis, 2 guys from the Lions getting dropped. I think just the competition in those positions in that 6 and 15 jersey is just too high at the moment. And then unfortunately, Ntokozo Makaza's run with the Springboks for now comes to an end. I mean, what a story Ntokozo Makaza was, and what a story it would have been if he had to, end up playing in a Springbok jersey this season. But just because these guys have been released and just because they're injured doesn't mean they can't play themselves back into a Springbok lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if a few of them do end up getting a couple of caps. But now, let's actually have a look at what we're working with for the Springbok squad and what we can start formulating a couple of teams that could take on the Barbarians or Italy or Georgia. So into those forwards. Loet Diache, who's been having a decent season out there in Japan. Jean-Luc Depree, which is a massive inclusion because Jean-Luc Depree has fallen out of favor with the Springboks and then has played some really good rugby for the Sail Sharks to get himself back into the conversation. Again, one of those guys that can play 6, 7 or 8. So again, going to be interesting to see who Rassie Erasmus selects. Thomas the Tank Engine de Toy, who ended up winning the English Premiership now with Bath. Bath just getting over Leicester Tigers. Eben Etzebeth, obviously going to be there. Neertling for Shea, another sort of debutant or hopeful debutant for the Springboks that does provide some of that depth in the prop position. Jean Klein, we know how good he's been for Munster. Vincent Koch, Sia Khaleesi, Volko Low, Malcolm Marks, Bongim Benambe, Salman Murat. So some very experienced names there. It's slightly unfortunate that we don't have the likes of a Renzo Duplessis or Cameron Hanekom, these younger guys that we could sort of get into the mix of things. Then we got Franco Mostert, Oxenchur, Ruan Nokia, and I mean, I do feel a little bit bad for these Bulls guys. They have just gone to Dublin, played in a URC final. They need to be back for Springbok duty on Monday evening, and to be honest, they got absolutely battered by Leinster last night. So I think that is going to be a long plane journey home, and then to switch over into Springbok mindset into now that they've got to go and beat these international teams to stay first in the world so that we can get a good draw for the Rugby World Cup. Then we got Asenati. I mean, Wallin from Asenati, because he's sort of been on the fringes for a couple of years. He's played some really good seasons for the Lions in that prop position, and to finally see him in an actual squad, I think everyone in the squad is going to end up getting a cap in these first 4 games. So to see Asenati there, it's going to be very interesting to see him, how he fits into the Springbok game plan and if he can run with the big dogs. But you can imagine a Volkolo and an Asenati in the same forward pack, there's some big meat there. Then we've got Evan Roos. I mean, a massive opportunity for him. With the injury of Cameron Hanekom, he was brought in and he stays in the squad. So he didn't just come up for the training week. That's telling me that Rassie Erasmus is going to play Evan Roos in one of those games. And it's a massive opportunity for him. It's an opportunity to silence the critics, to put in some good performances for the Springboks, and to show why he needs to be in a Springbok jersey and why he deserves it. Then we got Kwagga Smith. Again, who's going to play that 8 role? Is it going to be Jasper Visser? Is it going to be Evan Roos? Is it going to be Kwagga Smith? We got RG Snyman, who came on for Leinster last night and delivered a solid performance. It is going to be interesting to see where Rassie plays RG Snyman. Is he going to start, or is he going to fill into that impact player role that he does for Leinster off of the bench? Then massive for Vincent Chichuka. I mean, I absolutely love Vincent. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Plays for the Sharks, and he's been having a couple of great seasons. And to see him stay up there is absolutely massive. I think it does help that Peter Steph du Toit is injured, which makes me think that we could potentially see Vincent Chichuka start in that number 7 jersey for the Springboks in one of these first 4 fixtures. Marco van Staden, we know what he's about. Marnus van der Merwe, another debutant playing for the Scarlets, used to be a Cheetahs man in that hooker position. Again, it looks like he is going to be that third choice hooker. We got Malcolm Marks, Bongi Manambe, Marnus van der Merwe, but then we also have Jan Hendrik Wessels, who can switch between that prop and hooker position, which, I mean, as we know from Rassie Erasmus, is absolutely vital. Then we have Bohan Venter, and I mean, we're going to see something from him. It's a very It's a Rassie thing to do, to just include Bohan Venter into, I mean, a 45 shortlist 45 Springbok squad is a Rassie Erasmus thing to do. So, I mean, I'm interested, and we're going to see if he's going to get selected or not. And then just to finish it off, we've got Kobus Visser and Jasper Visser, 2 absolute wrecking balls. And it's going to be special to see them sort of take the field as brothers. Then into the backs. And like I said, some big guys dropped. Jordan Hendrickse, Jaden Hendrickse, Kewan Horn, and Ntokozo Makaza from the back. So I'm gonna run through this a little bit quicker. Kurtley Orense, Damien Delende, Faf de Klerk. 3 absolutely vital players for the Springboks. I'm very interested to see what Faf de Klerk's role is in the Springboks this year and leading into that 2027 Rugby World Cup, because having dropped Jaden Hendrickse and leaving Faf there, that tells me that Faf is going to be around for this year and probably lining up those All Black tests. Then we got Andre Esterhuizen, Apelele Fassi, both from the Sharks, both been playing incredible rugby for the Sharks. Sasha, I mean, we know what we're going to get from Sasha Feinberg and Gumazulu, and I think this is the year that he really makes, not a name for himself, but he becomes part of the furniture with the Springboks. He really, really puts a stake in the ground and delivers on this promise that we see from Sasha. Then another very, very exciting prospect is Ethan Hooker. Like I say, with Lukhanyo out with injury, could we see Ethan Hooker in that 13 role, or is Jesse Creel going to dominate that 13 role? I arguably think we might see Kanan Moody or Ethan Hooker play a couple of games in that 13 jersey. Then we got Ches and Colby. We don't need to say too much about him. Jesse Creel, Willie Leroux. Now, Willie had probably one of these worst showings for the Bulls last night in the URC final, but we need to get Willie Leroux to 100 caps, and he still is a world-class player. Mani Lebok, Handre Pollard, Kobus Reinach, Morne van den Berg, Edwin van der Merwe, Damian Willemse, and Grant Williams. So nothing too new there. Ethan Hooker, I mean, I think he's going to be one of the standout finds of the season for the Springboks this year, but a very, very experienced sort of backline group of players with the likes of the younger guys like an Apelele Fassi, a Sasha, a Ethan Hooker, a Kanan Moody, an Edwin van der Merwe. It's going to be very, very interesting to see who plays in that 9 position, who plays in that 10 position, and then who falls in that 13 jersey when it's not JC Creel. Is it Kanan Moody or is it Ethan Hooker? So that's all I have for you guys on the squad announcements. There's some massive announcements, and I think I'm going to make another video later today breaking down all the guys that did get released and maybe why they got released. So stick around for that. Hit that subscribe button, and if you haven't, make sure you leave your opinions down in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.